Hi Sanath, hi Ayushman. Just waiting for a couple of people to start joining. I just waiting like a quick 30 seconds to 1 minute. Let's see. Hey guys, welcome to MB and Beyond and yet another coffee to help you bridge or make your roadmap for round one. Most of you we know are targeting, and you have a bunch of questions and that you want to bombard to Sanat and Ayushman, who have been successful applicants for the round one, round two, and they'll help you sort of lay out the roadmap for you today. As for me, I'm Paridhi, co-founder of MB and Beyond. Tonight, we are going to bring Sanat and Ayushman. We are going to introduce them in a bit for you, who are successful applicants, have a bunch of scholarships, and they made it to some of the top schools globally. They're going to help you lay out the roadmap for you for round one this year if you're targeting September 23 intake. All right, just to warm up a little, just to get started, I want to understand a couple of things from you. You can drop in a yes in the chat box or in the comment section if you have taken the GMAT yet, and if you've not, drop in a no. So it's just to get to know you better, just to understand where is our audience at, what stage are you at, are you still considering taking the GMAT? Please drop in your answers, just help us warm this up and get to know you a little better. Have you taken the GMAT yet? I speak to a lot of applicants. Some of them are on the journey. They're doing their mocks. They're taking it in May, in June. Drop in the month also if you want when you're taking it. Also, we would like to later understand, and when we're discussing the roadmap, whether you should work on your applications alongside your GMAT or you should do it after you have taken your GMAT. All right, so two people have dropped in the answer, not yet. Have you taken the GMAT, guys? We have a lot of audience there trying to understand from all of you where you're at. Okay, some people are going to retake it. Most of you have not taken. You scheduled it in August. Definitely, this person needs to work on the GMAT and application alongside because you can't rush to. All right, most of you have not taken. Thanks for the answers, guys. Have you finalized the colleges, the B schools that you're going to be applying to, or you're just in the research phase? So you can drop a yes or a no or anything elaborate that you want to. All right, so you have not thought about the schools that you're going to apply to. More answers, looking to understand you better. Have you finalized the B schools that you're going to be applying to for September 23? Have you at least started researching on what kind of schools match your profile? All right, some have. Interesting to know. Abiti has. Cool. So, from what I understand, most of you have not taken the GMAT, and most of you are just researching. Some of you are reappearing, and that's a good start. Okay, some of you are 710 GMAT, wanting to go higher. Of course, there's no limit to it. We all want to go higher. Good one. Let me introduce our speakers tonight, and then I'm handing over the stage to our speakers to help you guide on whatever questions you might have in your head tonight. Ayushman Chaudhary. Ayushman is a graduate from VIT Vellore with over 5 years of experience in supply chain operations in heavy engineering and manufacturing industry. He's an incoming full-time MBA student to the University of Virginia Darden School of Business. Welcome on stage, Ayushman, and we're
Thanks.
glad to have you here tonight. All right. Along with Ayushman, we have Sanat. Sanat is a computer science engineering graduate with almost 4 years of experience in the IT industry. Sanat is an incoming tech MBA candidate at IE Business School, Madrid, with a 20% scholarship. He's very entrepreneurial and has been a part of many startup stints here and there. So, welcome to the stage tonight, Sanat, and we are glad to have you as a speaker with us.
Thanks, Paridhi. Happy to be here.
All right, over to you guys, and you can start.
Yeah. Welcome, guys. Glad to have you join us today for this coffee session. So, I think the first question that we all would really like to address is why do we need to apply in round one, right? I mean, when we have multiple rounds to apply in, why should we choose to apply in round one? So the point is, at least with majority of us in the audience being Indians, Indians are a overly represented pool. Usually, what happens is schools only have a selected amount of seats which are reserved for Indians, and as we move further ahead in the rounds, the number of seats start dwindling. So it's very important, at least as Indians, and especially if you're an Indian male engineer, you know you're in for a tough competition. That is why we always have this incentive for taking early action, which ensures that there are more seats available and we are not fighting for bones which are remaining in the later rounds, right? And also, as the rounds progress ahead, the amount of scholarship money which is left in these funds also reduces. So your chance of getting scholarships also reduces as the rounds move ahead. So that's another important thing to consider because financing the MBA is a huge burden at the end of the day, right? And the final point which we would like to mention here is that in case your first choice schools don't work out, right, you'll still have enough amount of time to rethink, replan, and go back to the drawing board and come up with new strategies to apply for another set of schools, more probably in round two, right? So that's why applying in round one gives you the liberty of the time as well. So it's very important to you know plan and apply in round one. Pariti, can
Right.
we? Yeah. Ashman, you want to take this?
Sure. So the second thing that we wanted to discuss is like the game plan, and game plan is basically because as Indians we are always in tune to giving exams, so we know that GMAT or GRE is an exam that we need to give to get into our dream business school. So basically there is no right or wrong approach. And it's great that both me and Sanat are there in this call because we both had this two opposite approaches, but both of them worked for us in the end. So my approach was the GMAT first approach, where I really wanted to focus all my energy and attention into giving the GMAT once, twice, getting the best score, and like after getting the score, then I would like shortlist my schools and like then focus all my energy into the application process. So that was my way of looking at it, because that would help me narrow down to the schools where I felt I had maximum chance of getting a success. But again, there are other ways of tackling this situation, which I guess Sanat can also help.
Like Aishman said, he preferred to get the GMAT out of the way first. I went the other way around. I initially shortlisted my schools, and based on that, I figured out what my target GMAT score is, and then prepared for the GMAT accordingly. And that worked out for me because, for me mentally, when I was approaching the GMAT, I did not know what score band to target for because all of us want that aspirational 780, 800. But again, we need to be practical about our own abilities and the timeline that we have, right? So, selecting the schools first and figuring out what is the average GMAT score of those schools helped me figure out what is the GMAT score I need to target and how much time I would need to prepare for that. So that what worked out for me. But again, like the slide says, there is no one fixed path which you can take. You can go around tinker with your own game plan, but this is what we did. When it comes to school selection, there are again like a lot of questions that we have around what geographies we want to select and how important is rankings and things like that. So again, here I think we would like to share what we did personally, and then we can probably take more questions towards the end like, regarding why certain geographies would work out and why certain why certain choices were made. Right? At least me, from a personal perspective, I always had the aspiration of being in Europe. more so for the lifestyle and the quality of life in Europe. That and so that is basically one of the reasons why I targeted exclusively European schools. And I now once I knew that okay, Europe is the place I'm going to go. I always knew that at the end of the day I want to be an entrepreneur. So I started looking at schools which have most of the people at the end of their MBA get into entrepreneurship or something related towards that. So I basically did my school selection based on the post MBA goals and not as much on the GMAT score. Ashman, of course, took the other approach and went ahead with shortlisting schools based on GMAT score. Ashman, you want to elaborate on that?
Sure. So again, like Sanat said, even I firstly shortlisted my geography, and in my case, it was mostly US and maybe India if US never worked out. And US because one would be, yeah, there was a personal connection, like I had some family there, so yeah, there was that safety net. And the second reason was definitely like I was always fascinated by the business in US, and more importantly, like the I was looking into management consulting in future, and I saw that in US the market and the scope of management consulting firms and the work that they do is really huge. And that's why and then I shortlisted on the schools. Obviously GMAT was one aspect, and the other aspect was obviously the strength of the school in that particular industry. Again, a bit of post MBA goals lies into that as well. And overall, based on these factors, I shortlisted a bunch of schools where I could actually get my offer. So yeah, that's how I went about the process.
Yeah, just one more point I wanted to add in there is at least when I was shortlisting the schools, all I kept in mind was that I need to get into the top 20 schools. So the ranking of that individual school did not matter as much to me. Um, uh, but the post MBA goals or where the students are getting placed post doing an MBA in that particular school, that is what I majorly looked at. So in that way, I didn't give a lot of importance to ranking.
Yeah, I think we missed 2 points. We can shortly cover them. So yeah, does ranking play a role in school selection? I would feel that obviously when like accredited like organizations are like giving their rankings for business schools, obviously there is some factors that are taken into consideration and there is merit to it. But one should like take have a look at these rankings, but not like single-mindedly blindly follow those rankings. They should also talk to the alumni of the school, do some of their own research, and also try to figure out how their profile, how their post MBA goals fit into the business school, and not just look at the rankings as such. So yeah, a mix and match of everything, and the only thing that one has to do is research a lot, and yeah, you would be fine. Sanat, you wanted to add anything on that?
No, Ashman, I think pretty much covered everything.
Yeah, and I think the last point, yeah, the last point, the ideal number of schools one should target. So, uh, I would say one should at least have like a range where there is something called an ambitious school and there is something called a safety school. So roughly, ideally, if you have a good amount of time, one should really target 4 schools minimum for a particular round. Obviously, if you want to increase the number of schools and you don't have time, obviously the quality of your application will also reduce. So you have to keep in mind that aspect as well. But if you have sufficient time, and then you should obviously think of ambitious and safety schools, and think of a sweet spot of 4 schools at least. Yeah, that's my take on it. Sanat, you wanted to say anything?
Yeah, so basically, the way I approached it was I had a list of 5 to 7 schools, which had a mix of 2 ambitious schools, two target schools, and then two safety schools. So what I planned to do was based on their round one deadlines. I applied for three schools in round one, which was like two ambitious schools and one target school. And then I kept left the safety schools for round two because I anyway knew that I have a bit of a cushion there, so I can probably experiment with it or take that risk. So again, it depends on your risk appetite and how you want to play it, but this just how I strategized.
That's a really good one, both of you. And we've jumped back in because then we had a couple of questions which I thought maybe we should tackle right now instead of towards the end. So Raghu has a question. He says that aren't these two parallels? If we know what's our short-term goal and long-term goal, then we can narrow down our schools and get a GMAT as per the B schools. So maybe both of you have a little bit of answer there, and then I can add on.
Uh, I would say yes, if somebody is super clear with their short term and long term goals. Like, for example, if somebody wants to go into tech, then I'm just giving you an example. Then obviously you need to look at West Coast schools in US, and then look at those schools, maybe an ambitious school, maybe Stanford, Haas, and then like something in the lower 15 and 20, and you can see the range of GMAT score that is required, and then practice accordingly. If you don't get in your first attempt, retake it. But yeah, you can have that game plan and succeed. That's a possibility.
Absolutely. So, just to add on and build up on what Ayushman just said, and what like Sanat wanted to go into entrepreneurship, so he kind of knew, and Ayushman wanted to go the consulting route. Sometimes, what happens, guys, we may want to pitch ourselves as having a goal of, let's say, a management consultant or a product manager. But when you realize, when you're working on your application, you realize that you belong to an overrepresented pool, and each section of your application is actually adding on to the competition, and you want to steer clear from it. I mean, of course you have to write a convincing story, but if you don't have enough evidence to support management consulting, you might like not be able to pull off a great application for that school, irrespective of a GMAT, irrespective of what you really wanted to do. So there are a lot of dimensions that play an important role when you're picking the schools as well. I clearly, and this is my biased answer towards it, when you don't have any management consulting experience and you want to apply for a management consulting school, which is known for management consulting because of the career statistics, it becomes really hard for you to pull off a great story. And it's not that if you go to a school which is higher on the finance and lesser on the management consulting side, you won't make it through there, but it's just very hard. So this is like I would say a chicken and egg thing, but it has to go hand in hand together, just selecting your score. And for the point that we just discussed, if you're confident about the enough evidences that you have for your post MBA goals, and if you have a GMAT score already set, then yes, to your question, you can take that route, what you just mentioned, Raghu. Sanat, would you want to add something there?
Nobody, I think, covered pretty much everything.
All right. Vibhur also has a question, so we'll tackle this one, and the remaining ones we'll do towards the end. So Ayushwan, he wants to know from you, where all did you apply for consulting? Darden is to some people or firms the best one out there for its case-based pedagogy. Um, but did you apply elsewhere? Uh, how much did the GMAT impact your application?
Right, right. So yes, I applied to a bunch of schools that were like strong into consulting. Darden was there, Tuck was there, Fuqua was there, and also Tepper. I did not like increase the number of applications because I had limited time and I wanted to give my best foot forward. So, and I also knew based on my profile and the competition that this is the sweet spot where I can maximize my chances of getting an admit and also getting that school where I can get into my post MBA goals. So these were roughly the schools where I applied, and obviously the career statistics, speaking to people, alumni, any other the people who are working in these schools, I got a understanding of what the career statistics would look like. And GMAT impact, I would say, like I had a 730. It's a good score, but I would say that it's not like a deal breaker. There were other aspects in my profile which were equally important for me into getting into this business school. And I think overall, you need to work on every aspect to get through your dream school. So yeah, that's my take.
All right. Thanks a lot, Ayushman. There's a little bit of more questions, but we'll tackle them towards the end. And jumping on to the next slide for you guys.
Sanath, you
Um,
want to take?
Yeah, yeah, sure. So when it comes to scholarships, there is a slight difference between the way scholarships are dealt with in the US and in Europe. In US, we get more big ticket scholarships, but the number of people getting scholarships is lower. So we hear of more people getting 60%, 70%, 80% scholarships in the US, whereas in Europe, the number of people who get the scholarships are higher, but then the percentage of scholarships is lower. So we already mentioned, I got like a 20% scholarship, but then there are other people in my batch who got like 40% scholarship. But then the big ticket scholarships that we see in the US, we don't see those in Europe. And also, like again, like we mentioned in the first slide, you apply early, the chances of getting a scholarships is significantly higher. So yeah, that's with scholarships.
Yeah, we also have a bunch of articles on the website. We're just going to flash them down there. So if you want to research a little more or more on scholarships, you can refer to the articles. You can click on the link. You'll find a bunch of plethora of information sitting out there.
So, yeah, some of the common myths about this entire journey of MBA application. So, the first one is GMAT is like the end all be all of your application. So, yeah, it's a myth. GMAT is important, but there are other aspects which are equally important, and you need to like put your best foot forward in every aspect. And eventually, the application is like holistically viewed, and yeah, that's how you get an admit. So yeah, don't be like bogged down by getting like a very high GMAT score. Look at the average or the median score that a particular school has, and try to be in that range. That's what I would say. The second one is US pays higher than Europe. uh, I mean, it's like it's basically more about your career path and like which particular function you want to go. Like investment banking, I know it pays a lot, but they have long hours. And then there are others where it may not pay as much as it's like in other fields. So yeah, it's more about, I would say, rather than the geography, I would say focus on like your post MBA goals and your the career path. And lastly, regarding GMAT or GRE, I would say if anybody is starting the process, don't know anything about GMAT or GRE, or someone who has given the GRE or GMAT and is not able to ace it, I would say give a GRE, see where you're comfortable at. Because I know many of my friends who were not so good at GMAT gave the GRE, did really well, and now they are going into their dream business school. So like the business schools, they don't differentiate between GMAT or GRE. It's more about you being comfortable in which particular exam and trying to ace that exam. So that's my take on that. Sanath, you wanted to add anything?
Yeah, so just one point when we are talking about GMAT being the end all be all, I think one really underrated aspect which most of us overlook when we are preparing for our MBA application is our short term and long term goals. So, how we have actually built up our profile over the years towards our short term goal or towards a long term goal, it plays a very important aspect in saying that, okay, I'm actually committed to this, I'm not just speaking in the air. So I feel that's a very underrated aspect in many candidates. So it's very important to build our profile towards our goals. So yeah, that's one aspect which I just want to touch upon.
Absolutely. I just build up on what you both just said. One of the things that is very, very undervalued because of the common myths that we have, that GMAT or GRE is the most important elephant in the room, is the most important aspect of your application. And that's not true, guys. And one of the mistakes that not so many non-Indian applicants make, but Indian applicants make, that you invest a lot of time on your GMAT and very little time on your application. You could spend like 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 months on your GMAT preparation and without even thinking about what your goals are. Why do you need to go for an MBA? Whether you have sufficient evidences or not? What's your overall narrative? How are you going to convince the adcoms with a really nice pitch for yourself? That's something which is very undervalued and is not and is usually rushed through in just 1 month span of time. And that's when you realize that you've had rejects, you've been dinged, and you have been waitlisted just because of the fact there were not enough coherence in your application. The collinearity was missing. You were trying to pitch for something but you have evidence for something else. You did not think about it. So like Ayushman and Sanat said, that it is just a tick box, it's not the deal breaker. So we have to value each aspect of your application wholesomely, not one over the other. So very well said, Ayushman and Sanat. I hope the audience understands and realizes the importance of a strong application wholesomely, not just GMAT. And yes, the GMAT GRE question, I personally want to address this because I get asked a lot, and I'm tired of convincing applicants with the answer that it does not matter. They don't value one over the other. Uh, Take the one where you are most comfortable with. Like, just take the exam. It could be EA, it could be GMAT, it could be GRE. Whatever you feel you are the most comfortable and confident about, take that exam. Some of the applicants, they also decide to switch paths. So let's say I prepared for GMAT for 2 months and now I'm like, it's not working out. Let me start from scratch and start preparing for GRE. Then it's affecting your journey. It's affecting your overall journey, and you might just end up being disheartened because you didn't put full all your heart into one preparation of one exam that you were confident about. So all right, moving on to the next one. Okay, so I think that was good insights. We have a couple of more questions. We will just tackle them shortly. So, building upon what Sanat and Ayushman just said, what your roadmap should look like, I would like to talk about how we help applicants throughout the year with their journey and help them understand exactly what their roadmap and what their milestones should be. So it really depends whether you're an applicant who's comfortable working with your GMAT and application alongside. You should already start working on your application, because trust me, if you're going for 5 or more schools, this is the time when you should start. On an average, you should be devoting 25 days per application if you really want to pull off a good application, including, and an application does not include your essays, it has your LORs. You have to prepare video interviews, you have to do like a lot of rehearsals for those video interviews. You have to have your resume that has to match the overall story that you're pitching to a business school. So I'm going to break down this process into a little bit for you, something that we have made it easy for the applicants to follow, with a lot of frameworks and samples that you're going to read. So our process is broken down into three major parts. The first part, which is like a little pre-work that we do with all our applicants, it's called content gathering phase. This you can call a reflection phase or you can call an introspection phase, but this is where you unleash yourself and identify who you are actually as a person to be pitched to a business school. This you do with a content gathering specialist who's also a psychology specialist or a therapy practitioner, who sort of prepares a comfortable environment for you to be yourself as you are and not somebody else. One of the things that we make a mistake with during our application, we try to be someone else because we read on the internet that, hey, because I come from tech, I need to be a product manager. But why do you need to be a product manager? Are you even interested in making a product or managing a product later? Or maybe you want to do something else. What are those problem areas that you are really passionate about? So, we have designed a content gathering phase precisely for this, to help you understand better and your consultant to understand you better, more than them just helping you in your essay edits. Now, this content gathering phase is going to be broken down into three sets. Set one revolves around very high level questions around core and fundamentals of any business school, no matter what business school you're applying to. So, questions around what Sanat and Ayushman just mentioned. What are your goals? Why do you need an MBA to get to your goal? Why can you not achieve your goals without an MBA? Why do you need to invest that kind of crazy money into helping you have the credibility that you are expecting with those goals? So MBA is a means to the goals. It's not the end goal. And that's where in content gathering, we help you identify what are these means and why an MBA fits into your journey so well. Then we of course map it with the current experience that you have. There are frameworks for it. So by the end of it, you would realize that you have answered 12 main questions and 40 sub questions, and you've introspected so much. So if you want, you could have even written a book if you would have really given your journey so much of a thought. So that's set one. But this is your story from your perspective, your dimension, your thinking space. Now, we move on to set two, where we bring in other dimensions and other aspects to your application, to your story, your personality from other people's perspective. Why do we do that? So, we spend time with admissions directors of top 10 business schools every year. And one of the common things that we've noticed across business schools and like across all the adcoms is that they have a knack of identifying self biases in your application. Of course, you have to boast in your application, but you have to boast humbly. They can clearly see that when you're talking about your strengths, weaknesses, achievements, failures, you have a lot of examples to support your achievements and your strengths. But when it comes to failures and weaknesses, you sort of don't have so many evidences to support, or you try to steer clear from bringing them out to the table because you want to defend yourself. And it's only natural because we are Homo sapiens and we tend to do that. Business schools don't have a problem with that, but they're looking for fairly more neutral individuals to become global business leader, and that's what you have to present in your story as well. So for that, if we as your consultant or your mentor have to make justice to your application, we need to understand you holistically from a third person perspective. Now, for that, we can't do that only listening to your story from your perspective. We need to loop other people in. So we ask you to suggest three really important people in your life: one personal connection, one professional connection, and the third one could be either of them. And then we send them a really candid questionnaire to collect some information on your personality, strengths, weaknesses, whatever their experiences have been with you. And then we try to understand you from another lens, from a third person perspective. Now, when this happens, some people are very clever, and you could do that too. You can bring in your recommenders to do this bit with you or for you, because if you have a good relationship with them, you could already see and you could already know what they're going to be talking about you. Some applicants do that with us, and when you know that, you can kind of twist your story in a direction that business schools want to see, and you have everything already laid out for what your recommender is going to be talking about, because it's a very important piece of information to support your cause in front of the admissions committee. Now that's set two for content gathering phase. We move on to set three. This is, guys, where I believe the magic really happens. Because if we belong to an overrepresented pool, as most of you are, like we mentioned, Indian male engineers, Indians in general, like we are overrepresented, India, China, Asia, overrepresented. How do we cut through the clutter? So we won't be able to do that if we don't showcase our values, our personality, and how well do they match the top business schools' values that they hold true. Every school has a value, and they have a set of values, three to four on an average. And they are really seeking those values in each and every individual that they want to have a, a part of their cohort next year. That's how, when you focus on your personality, even if you're a low Gmat scorer, you are able to cut through the clutter and make it through to the top schools. So here we're going to put you through a personality test, and based on the results of the test, we will define the traits that will become the backbone of your application, and everything else that you've done in your life is going to hang around it as a supporting piece of evidence. Now, once all of this is done, your consultant comes in, goes into a brainstorming conversation with you. By the way, Sanat and Ayushman are also consultants with us now, because they've been amazingly coaching and helping candidates to make it to the top schools. So yes, feel free to reach out to us, schedule a profile evaluation call if you really want to work with them. They've really done wonders during the time when they put their application through the whole process, and they brought out the best personality possible. So yeah, your consultant comes in. Your consultant reads through all the content that you've gathered and prepares a one pager branding document for you. This is your MBA pitch. You can call it your sales pitch, your marketing pitch, your business pitch, whatever you want to call it. But it has your high level storyline, your strategy, your theme, and your direction. Stick it on the wall. This is your reminder. This is who Ashwin is, or this is who Raghu is. This is who, and you have to constantly remind yourself throughout the year that this is what you need to pitch yourself as to a business school if you really want to make it strong for an admissions committee. So re-emphasize your own self, what your story to a business school is going to look like, and then basis this document, like the question that Raghu had in the beginning: how do we select schools and aren't these two parallels? This is the moment when you can sit down with your consultant and pick the schools where you have the highest potential of converting based on your narrative and your story along with your GMAT score. So if you've not taken the GMAT score until the branding document, you rely on the mock scores that you're getting. So you average out a few mock scores. If you're getting, let's say, a 680 or something, and this is your narrative, then you pick your school's basis that based on your overall story that you're making to a business school. Now, once all of this happens, you start working on your application. Your consultant doesn't merely just work on a Word doc with you back and forth. You like genuinely go on a brainstorming call with them. They're like your friend, they're like your mentor, who help you guide through any problem that you're having while putting your application together. So your consultant is going to give you full direction and content placement for the essays. On an average, in 3 to 4 iterations, you will realize that your essay is perfect and good to be submitted. Then we also help you with your letter of recommendation with something that's called LOR mapping. Always remember, guys, your recommendation can never be a repetition or a duplication of your resume or your essay. It is an extra piece of information, a complementary piece of information that is making your story stronger, and it's an evidence that making you look like stronger in front of the admissions committee. Example, if Sanat was talking about entrepreneurship, he needed two more examples to support entrepreneurship in him, or as an entrepreneur in him, to support the cause for his post MBA goal. So there are a lot of dimensions that go into picture, and for that, it's very, very important that you're able to map it with your overall story. Now, when that happens, your story becomes completely full-fledgedly like pieces of puzzle put together to frame a big picture. Your resume is like that, your LOR, your essay. Then we also help you with your letter of recommendation, sorry, your resume, which is plugged into this piece of puzzle to make a big picture. Similarly goes for your video interview. And finally, if you make it to the final round, then we're going to do a lot of mock sessions with you. When we do these mock sessions, we make sure that you are so prepared to pitch your story like you would do to an investor if you were a startup founder. So, having like gone through this journey, it ensures that you have a full-fledged application wrapped up in the whole journey that you take. And this is an exhaustive journey, so we do recommend the earlier you start, the better. For if you work with ME and beyond, if you are proactive, you can work with us as long as 1 year until your deadlines. So even if you start now, you can go through to round one and round two. And yes, something that Sanat mentioned, please make sure that you hedge your bets. You don't apply and put all your eggs into the dream basket. Have dream schools, realistic schools, and safe schools if you really know you have to go to a business school. And you don't want to be disheartened if you don't make it through to the top dream schools. So yeah, that's the process. We have a bunch of questions again for Sanat and Ayushman. Let me flash a couple of them. All right. So Abhiti says, I'm a beginner, just started with my GMAT prep. Is it necessary to do a deep research on V schools, or can that be done side by side? So yeah, Sanat, Ayushman.
Abhiti, I would just say it goes on your own mental makeup. Like again, we gave you the example that for me, with the way I work, it was really important for me to know which school I want to get into so that I know what GMAT score to target, because otherwise it would just be a whole bunch of scores. Like I would always end up targeting 780, which would end up being highly impractical, at least for me, right? So that really worked out for me. But for Ayushman, GMAT was a mental block, so he just wanted to get that out of the way. and then target the school. So it basically depends on your mental build-up. But then I would highly suggest doing things parallel, so that at least you know like where you're headed to, like what kind of a score you want to target at the end of your GMAT exam. So that really helped me. So I would probably definitely suggest that.
Ayushman, do you have a different take on it?
No, like same, like you should do some preliminary research like side by side, and like let's just say you are applying for round one, coming round one, so you have roughly 5 months. So yeah, if you're starting with your GMAT prep, you should side by side do some research so that after 3 4 months you are not like in a blind spot. So if you are a bit more prepared right now mentally, then it would help your GMAT and also it would help you later on as well. So yeah.
That actually brings a question to my mind to you, Ayushman, because I remember you started working on your application in April sometime. So, when did you take your GMAT, and like how long was that journey to get to the score and then start the work on your application?
So I got my GMAT, my final GMAT maybe in May 2020, and I started working in my application 1 year later. But
Got
in
it.
those 1 year, I actually built my profile, did some bunch of stuff which actually complemented my resume and my story, and that eventually helped me into getting my admit. And in terms of preparing for the GMAT, I think 1 year prior to May 2020 was when I seriously started working. So yeah, it was a long journey,
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, it was a long process for me,
No,
definitely.
but thanks. You're actually talking about it because sometimes applicants they just think, oh, they've just thought about it now, so they can put in the application now, and that's not how it works. It is a long journey. You
Yeah.
have to. So some of them have started to work on their GMAT now. It's possible, and it's not to dishearten any of you. It's possible that you may not be able to submit your application this year because you may not have done the right research, or you may not have gotten to the stage where you have the right GMAT. It's okay to push your plans off to next year and build your profile during this year. All right, there's one more question from Abhishek. Oh, okay. Like, if someone is having an experience in a government sector, will that provide equal weightage in an application comparing to the person in the corporate sector? Do you guys want to take up that?
Uh, I am not really sure about equal weightage. I mean, if you have unique experiences from your professional career, and obviously, and if that experience adds to like the experience of the overall class, if it adds to the diversity of the classroom, you would definitely be considered. So rather than thinking about corporate or government sector, you should think about the stories that you would like pitch, and yeah, if those are unique, and then obviously the adcom members would be impressed and they would take you. So yeah.
Yeah, I'd build up on that a little bit. So I've seen people from government sector don't apply to business schools as much. So that, as it is, puts you in a little unique pool of applicants if you compare yourself with people applying from corporate background. Now, having said that, it does not really matter. I mean, you could be a yoga trainer and could still go to a top business school. It just matters, why do you want to go for an MBA? What do you really want to get out of it? And can you convince the adcoms of that? So, whatever background you're, you could be a dancer, you could be a yoga trainer, you could be working in the government for 10 years. That's all right. But yes, like Aishman said, it's your story, it's your reasons to go for an MBA that will make all the difference. All right, we have one more question. I'm shifting career paths, and that's why thinking of an MBA. So while applying, the work experience I is not particularly relevant. Several top B schools asks for managerial work experience. How to be? I'm not sure what the question really means. I do get some gist of it, that it's asking that they're switching career paths. So, do you want to tackle this, Sanat, Ayushman?
Oh, yeah. So I would again go back to the previous point that by we were making, that it's more about the reasons why you want to do a MBA rather than anything else, right? So even if you don't have managerial experience, it's absolutely fine to apply for a B school, as long as you can, convince the B school about why you want to apply for an MBA, that why you are going to add and be a unique candidate there, because that's all the MBA schools want at the end. They want unique individuals who add to the diversity of their cohort.
Yeah. And I mean, we've worked with a lot of applicants who have not had managerial experience as well. Like, you could be in a tech role, and techies usually work in silos. They've never had that kind of experience where they're leading a team or they're managing something. They could be managing a project, but not formally. Of course, it's important for you to informally bring out that aspect that you are a potential leader, but it's okay if you don't have a formal experience of leading a team or managing a team. So when you feel that your application is not wholesome with respect to what business schools look for, like international experience or leadership experience or multicultural experience or extracurriculars, try to do things outside of work as well. That's what I advise applicants, so that you can bring some meat to your application from things that you're doing outside of work. All right. We have, okay, how much do I can tackle this? Really depends what background you're coming from, but a lot. Like, the answer is a lot. They want you to be this wholesome leader that you're going to become. If, let's say, I'm going to give you two examples. We've worked with a lot of applicants, and then maybe Ayushman and Sanat can build up on that. There's an applicant who's an investment banker, 770 Gmat, having extreme amount of like all the promotions that you can bag, beautiful profile, but no extracurriculars because there is no time for it. There is another applicant who works as a yoga trainer, like I'm saying, is building up on her or his own venture, has hired a couple of yoga trainers, has been expanding it from Delhi to Mumbai to whatever. Now, this person also does not have any time for entrepreneurial or for any extracurricular activities. But the yoga trainer guy will always be more likely to be impressive to a business school, because he has a lot of more stories to talk about building an entrepreneurial venture or whatever. An investment banker who's just doing a 9 to 5 may not so much, so he needs extracurriculars more than the yoga trainer would. So it really depends on the wholesomeness of your profile, brings what it brings to the table. They want to understand you as a person altogether. What do you engage in outside of work? So if you have a very boring profile, which you feel is boring, so make sure that you are engaging in extracurriculars. That's what I would say. So yeah, Ayushman, Sanat, you want to add something to it?
I totally agree with
This
what you said.
So I mean, yeah, you judge for yourself. Am I doing a regular 9 to 5 job? And if that's yes, then immerse yourself in other interesting activities. Maybe go for some kind of Toastmaster activities. Try to be a leader outside of work. Try to lead some social impact drives. It could be during COVID. COVID has given opportunities to a lot of us. Engage in real world challenges that you really care about. If you care about education, become part of systems, do some pro bono consulting, help some people with strategy, etc. Just add more meat. Just do whatever you like, but do something. All right. I think that's all. Any more questions, guys? Like, feel free to drop in the comment section. Okay, Himanshu says, can you please share LinkedIn profile of both the panelists so that we can connect with them? For sure, somebody from the team is going to be doing that. You're also going to be receiving emails from us, so you're going to have Ayushman and Sanat's LinkedIn there. Let me actually find you guys on LinkedIn and do it here. Any other questions? All right, I think we're good. Perfect. Thanks a lot, Sanat and Ayushman, for a wonderful session tonight, and all the insights and helping these guys plan and how they should be thinking. I hope we've added some value to how you were thinking, guys. I hope we've changed a little bit, if not much, in how you should approach your application, and that's a big achievement for us. Thanks a lot. And if you are interested in talking to us, in talking to Sanat, Ayushman as well, we can arrange for that. Feel free to schedule a profile evaluation call with us, and we'd be happy to answer all the concerns, or evaluate your profile for the schools that you're targeting. Thanks, Ayushman. Thanks, Sanat.
Thanks, Sanat and Paditi. Bye.
Yeah. Guys, you can see the LinkedIn profiles there. For Sanat, it's there. I think Ayushman's is coming up soon. Yeah, you've got both the profiles there. Feel free to connect with these gem of people that we have here. All the best, everyone. All the best for early action. All the best for round one. Bye bye.
Bye.